Good evening to you all. This is Elizabeth, your sovereign. I am calling from Edmonton, Alberta, as I'm here celebrating St. Patrick's Day with many of my very many excellent friends. And I'm calling you dupes.
Welcome to Tales Under the Cat Tree. I'm your host, Dupes, and these are tales by humans for humans. After all, words and stories are what give meaning to the worlds we live in.
From Newfoundland to Montreal, and what do you get?
This is St. Patrick.
The incredible true story behind one of the wackiest St. Patrick's Day traditions ever on Montreal's Evening News at 6. Tonight, as you know, it is St. Patrick's Day, and you can bet the Irish pubs will be packed in Montreal tonight if they're not already. If you plan to head out for a pint or two, remember not to drink and drive. Instead, make a call to a new website that is offering prizes for the best drunken dials. It's a competition of the funniest messages callers can make. The contest started 5 years ago, and it started with a Montrealer. And as Tim Sargent found out, it is now reaching a global audience.
On this St. Paddy's Day, Dolipa Wijawaward Hana is on a mission.
That would be perfect.
He's pulling out the tape, plastering parking meter pay stations, and light posts with signs. Dupes, as he's called by friends, is starting a new St. Patrick's Day tradition. It's called the St. Patrick's Day Drunk Dial Contest. Between now and Monday, partygoers are encouraged to call a toll-free number, and they have 2 minutes to leave their best St. Patrick's Day drunken message.
You go out, you enjoy yourself tonight or until March 23rd on the parade, and give us a phone call and leave a funny story, and we'll give you a prize if it's funny.
I think it's pretty fabulous. I've done some drunken dialing, and there could be some good stories.
You were just listening to a global TV news spot in Montreal from March 2009, and the opening message from the Queen was one of the many winners from the St. Patrick's Day Drunk Dial competition that ran between 2003 and 2009. What was the St. Patrick's Day Drunk Dial? At its heart, it was simply an attempt to connect with friends from university from Newfoundland, and who were now spread throughout Canada and the world. Initially, I had asked friends to phone me when they were out night or day on St. Patrick's Day. Later, someone gave my phone number out, and the calls I received were amazing and completely random and from strangers. Each year, that grew until we got to 2009, when we decided to go big with an ad on Times Square and more. I've linked photos and the full video interview for anyone who is curious in the show notes. Today, I asked my friend Niall Brown to come on the show to talk about this insane contest that we ran.
My name is Niall Brown. I live currently in Montreal, where we have the oldest running St. Patrick's Day parade in North America.
So, Niall, I have you on the show. You're one of my oldest friends, one of my dearest friends. You were instrumental in one St. Patrick's Day drunk dial where we had a lot of fun. Do you remember? Or is it a haze of green beer?
I have more pictures than I have memory, I think, of the whole St. Patrick's Day affair. I do recall a couple of long-winded St. Patrick's Day here in Montreal. We actually had one year where we were on the St. Patrick's Day float, and it was frigidly cold. And then a follow-up year, I think, when you moved here, where we had an awful lot of our friends all come to join us in Montreal to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. That's really when you had been doing the St. Patrick's Day drunk dial, or some semblance thereof. You were just like, let's do more, as often green beer will make you do.
Possibly we had been drinking when we decided to do more. And so we went and got a telephone number. We decided to put together a web page.
I believe, you had a 1-800 number, so then you could get more international. I think the joy of it was just the international calls and the fact that everyone around the world would actually call in and be genuinely excited about just getting their voice. I think there's some some element of like call-in shows. You hear it on like AM radio still of people just love to do call-in shows.
A lot of it was completely unfiltered. You could totally see that people were completely soused in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising that people just genuinely there wasn't any discomfort or anything. It was just this kind of like, they felt like they were just talking to St. Patrick. I think that was the most amusing part of the whole thing. So for me, at least.
Do you recall why we decided that we needed to get this on Times Square? I actually have zero recollection of why we decided this.
No, I mean, I'm not sure where the idea came from. I think you had said like, you can actually get space and rent stuff. It's not that expensive. And we looked into it and it wasn't that hard to get things put on the screen in Times Square. I think that was the big crux of it. I think you had looked at something or something had come across.
No, I think I called a friend of mine because a friend of mine worked at Reuters. I got them to get me, I think, a good deal. And then we said, why not? And then we had to figure out what to put on there.
Yeah, well, I had photos from when we had been on the St. Patrick's Day float here in Montreal. I had a photo of my wife, Rebecca, who was, wearing the full green outfit with the top hat. And I think it was a free Guinness top hat that we had gotten from one of the performers on the float. And so we decided that would be a great photo for this to advertise the Drunk Dial. I think we opted not to have the photoshopped version of St. Patrick on there just because it may be a little more offensive, maybe a little less acceptable. Rebecca was a little more neutral in that respect. And so it was a great, exciting opportunity. And it seemed it went fast. I don't think it was done well in advance. I seem to remember it just being kind of like, no, let's just get this done now.
We talked about it and suddenly we had the ad and then we sent it off to them and suddenly we have pictures coming back from them of it being on there. And it was because it was very close to St. Patrick's Day that we actually did this. I don't think we planned this at all. And do you know how it is that I ended up on global TV? Like, what was the reason that they interviewed me? Because I don't even remember how it is that they ended up doing a spot on this.
I think we were at one of the local pubs, and I think we ended up talking to them about the Drunk Dial because we had posters and things that we had put up. We'll get to that in a second. But we had posters and things that we had put up, but we had talked to some people. And I think it was someone at one of the pubs was directly or indirectly related to the media. And they were like, hey, we need to understand what this is. This is a crazy idea. Because we had talked about all of the international people and all the people around the world who had called.
And Niall, I honestly cannot remember. I looked at that video just recently and I'm so young in it and I'm talking and I'm so excited. And I was sitting there thinking, I think I was more excited doing this than something I was trying to make money on.
You were definitely very excitable about the whole situation. For your listeners, I think it's important to realize that this is really an evolution or maybe a targeted attempt by your friends to contain your tendency to call people internationally at random times when you're out at a pub or on your way home from a pub or kind of out having a good time, ignoring time differences and feeling really, free to call them at 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. or I think, that kind of enthusiasm just really built into now you have an actual purpose, but people could call you. And I think that was maybe some of where your excitement came from, Dupes, is it was a little bit of, wait, I can make people call me. I don't have to call them. It's nice to get phone calls and nice to have people involved in the process.
This is true. There are friends whose partners have told me that if in no uncertain terms that should I call at 2 or 3 in the morning ever again drunk, that certain unnamed things might happen to me and certain body parts might go missing. I appreciate that. I do appreciate I have been in the past a little rambunctious.
I do think it was just your attempt to really involve others in the process. Let's be honest, being able to hear someone's voice versus email, Facebook, whatever, it's a lost art. I think that's the joy of podcasts and things like that, why people still subscribe to it and want to listen.
So you mentioned posters. let's get this last part of the story up. As it happened, we did have the Times Square, we had the website, we had the television spot of being interviewed, but I loved guerrilla marketing, and I thought it was a good idea. Like in the old days of university, if I was advertising something, I would print posters, and I spent a few days going around Montreal putting up posters.
I feel though as though you just really went full analog. You were just like, I have to do this old school. You printed a pile of posters, and I maybe put up one. You went off great guns around town and plastered these everywhere. I know you plastered them everywhere because however someone did it, they managed to, probably from your media spot, track you down and track it down to the three of us. We ended up getting fined, as you may recall,
Quite a bit.
from the city. It's quite a bit of money. I think my visceral reaction to it was less about being fined. Okay, we're not supposed to do it. We didn't know. We found out the hard way. And more just that we got fined way more than you'd get fined for like running a red light.
Yeah. It was crazy. It was thousands.
I think it was like $1,500 or something in the end that they kind of settled on letting us away with.
I can't remember. I think the actual fine and what we paid might have been different, but either way, it was a lot of money.
I don't remember if it was like, well, they weren't sure how many we put out, or we kind of we discussed it and got the please don't fine us the big amount. We're not a big corporation. We're just a few people. And I think that was the big thing. They just were like, okay, it's just a few citizens doing the wrong thing. If they had seen the Times Square advertisement, we might have been in more hot water, I think, than we ended up. But I'm still appalled. I still have a real problem with the fact that I think it was 3 times as much as you would have gotten if we had run a red light. We should clarify too, it wasn't the content of the posters. It was merely the fact that posters went on some telephone poles or something.
It was telephone poles. They were very specific. They said that it is illegal in Montreal, and this is a public service announcement for anyone in Montreal whosoever decides that printing a poster and putting it on a telephone pole, it is, my friends, completely and utterly illegal. There are many things illegal in the bylaws of Montreal, one of which, by the way, is also wearing a sandwich board, and yelling things outside of retail shops is also illegal, which we also discovered, but for a different reason. However, definitely putting up posters is illegal. And to be fair, I understand. Niall, you and I have known each other for a very long time. St. Patrick's Day was a holiday in Newfoundland for us, and we used to go out drinking and things of that nature. When you think of St. Patrick's Day, what comes to your mind?
I mean, probably a lot more since having all of these events. I do reminisce about the drunk dial and trying to explain that to my daughter. She's kind of confused as to what I'm talking about. But it was always kind of a big deal of like, hey, let's go do something and get together with friends. When I moved to Montreal, it became even bigger. We'd go for breakfast in the morning and it would be a whole day event. And we've had friends come visit us. When you moved and lived in Montreal, there was enough of us here that it was always kind of go meet everyone in the morning, go to the parade, hang out. And it really just became a whole day event of don't plan anything else because you're just going to be hanging around a pub, standing on a street, going for breakfast, going for second breakfast. I don't, those kinds of things. So I think a lot of it became that, like, just, hey, let's just have an all-day party.
To be fair, this is exactly why I missed everybody on St. Patrick's Day. I think I got so used to seeing everybody. It was in the middle of semester. Exams were just around the corner. We would go out. Newfoundland winters weren't exactly ever over, really, for a while. So, it just felt like a nice time.
It does feel like spring is on its way. You're almost at the tail end of winter. I will say one other thing. I do recall with the St. Patrick's Day drunk dial, there were winners.
Some amazing winners.
People won things. Not to discount that. There were some epic attempts at great humor.
I think some of the best random telephone calls ever recorded in history.
It clearly got spread around, and there were definitely people who called, and I don't think we knew them.
But of course, the listeners will get to listen to all of those as well right after this. So,
great.
Niall, thank you very much. And this episode goes out on or just before St. Patrick's Day and over the week of St. Patrick's Day. I know you're going to be going to the parade with your daughter, hopefully step dancing all the way down the parade.
Well, she's doing Irish dancing now, so she won't let me do it, but she'll probably do some on the sidelines.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
You too.
So you ask, who were the winners? Well, here's a sampling. I do want to call out one Dan Niederlo who won the event from Hawaii. We ended up sending him a bottle of Jameson's from Montreal. These are some of the finest, most epic random phone calls to ever be received, in my personal, humble opinion.
Here's a St. Patrick's Day message for you.
Okay. This is the St. Patty's Day drunk dialing contest. It's like this thing with me and my friends, and people get like drunk on St. Patty's Day. They all phone and leave messages while they're drunk on St. Patty's on the same machine.
Hi, I'm Goose. I don't know you, but I'm so drunk. Ah! Okay, that's it. I'm tapped. That's it. My world of knowledge has been siphoned already, and I'm so drunk that I don't have any knowledge left. I just have drunken instincts, which tell me to, whatever.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Good evening to you all. This is Elizabeth, your sovereign, as I'm here celebrating St. Patrick's Day with many of my very many excellent friends. Have you heard recently about the Irish boomerang? It doesn't come back. It just sings songs about how much it wants to. Have an excellent St. Patrick's Day, and God save me.
But squatcha, blah, blah, blah.
Hi, my name's Aaron, and I just don't get Kanye West. I just don't get it. Listen, my wife gets it, but I don't get it.
Because you're an idiot.
Apparently it's because I'm an idiot.
I'm in a pub on Chicago's South Side. Guinness is flowing like 40-weight motor oil down the throats of 100 cubicle-dwelling office monkeys, grateful for some respite from another cold, gray Lake Michigan howler. Tomorrow, just another day toward paying the mortgage, but tonight is a bit of Irish magic, straight from Kilcarney. There's barely enough Irish blood here to paint a green M&M, but that doesn't matter. The air is thick with Danny Boy and good-natured slaps on the back. Everyone's full of drink and nostalgia for a misty-eyed past that exists only in Yeats poems and soap commercials.
This is St. Patrick. I just thought I'd give you a call to see how you're doing. It's just that I've noticed you've got this drunk dial website dedicated to me. And I see you've got some kind of advertising up, hoping to make a few dollars and giving some prize money away. I mean, the folks who run Guinness are smart lads. They know better than to piss off the Lord. The Irish did that once, and the Lord sent the English to rule them for centuries.
So here's to you, St. Patrick, but it's your name up there on the calendar. No other saint has us coloring our beer green and wearing strange hats in public. If I've learned anything in this life, it's that being worshipped is a good thing.
I can't believe it's over. I got drunk so I could call in, and you're telling me it's over. I'm not even supposed to be drinking. I did this for you and you. Oh crap, here's my mom. I should go. But
Thanks to my friend Niall Brown for coming on the show, as well as my other partner in crime, Michael Mannion, who also had to bear the brunt of our fines. Really, there was zero way I was getting out of that fine. The city of Montreal had me on video sticking up posters right good on those poles. I hope everyone has a very good St. Patrick's Day. Remember, if you do get drunk and you happen to have my phone number, you could still call me. I'll take your call day or night. Thank you for listening to another episode of Tales Under the Cat Tree. Listen to the archives wherever you get your podcasts or at tales.dupes.ca. That's tales.dups.ca. This podcast is about the worlds we create, the realities we conjure, and the wonders of the human condition, whether you're sober or drunk. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please help me reach more people by subscribing or sharing this episode. This podcast, including its intro music, is produced, edited, and created by Dileepa Vijayawardena. Give your pets a cuddle until we meet again for some Tales Under the Cat Tree.
Hello. So, I got this Facebook shit. I wasn't really going to participate, but now I am. I think it's funny that you're I'm eating popcorn, by the way. That's why there's crunching. Anyway, so I had a really good time on St. Patrick's Day, and I hope that everybody that drunk dialed you had a very good time on St. Patrick's Day. So, woo! Yay! I don't want to scream too loud. I'm going to wake people up because we just got home. Okay, so, anyways, while I eat popcorn on the phone with you, I hope that everybody had a really fun time, because I know I fucking did. I had a great time. Goodbye.